Have you ever wanted to say something so precise, so calm, and so sharp that the other person just goes silent? Not by shouting, not by throwing insults, but with pure clarity and intelligence. Picture this. You're in the middle of an argument. Someone is raising their voice, interrupting you, trying to dominate the moment. And instead of fighting fire with fire, you drop one sentence, just one, and suddenly they lower their voice, shift uncomfortably, and realize they've got nothing left to say. That's what today is all about. I'm going to share 5 powerful responses that silence anyone without you ever losing your calm. Bosses, co-workers, family members, even those people who just love to argue for sake of it. These aren't cheap comebacks. These are phrases rooted in Stoic wisdom. And if you use them, you'll notice how the entire energy of the conversation shifts. Stay with me until the end, because response number 3 can completely disarm even the most skilled manipulator. And trust me, you'll want to practice every single one of these. Before we dive in, if you value learning tools that protect your peace and help you earn respect without drama, don't forget to hit that like button. It really helps me keep bringing this kind of content to you. Response 1, I don't need to raise my voice to be right. Let me ask you something right at the start. Have you ever been in a conversation where the other person thought that shouting somehow made them smarter? They get louder, their face tightens, their body leans forward, almost like volume alone is enough to prove their point. And inside, you feel that fire rising, that urge to match their energy, to show them you won't back down. But here's the truth. The moment you let their tone control yours, you've already lost the game. Because now, they're not just controlling the conversation, they're controlling you. Now imagine this instead. You're in that same conversation. The room is tense, people are watching, and the other person is practically vibrating with anger. Everyone's waiting to see what you'll do. Instead of shouting back, instead of letting adrenaline win, you pause. You take a calm breath. Your face stays neutral, your voice steady. And you say, I don't need to raise my voice to be right. And instantly, the dynamic shifts. The room gets quiet. The tension breaks. The person who thought shouting would dominate suddenly looks smaller, weaker, exposed. Because when you refuse to meet chaos with chaos, you've already won. Here's why this works on such a deep level. People who raise their voice believe that control comes from aggression, but aggression is just insecurity wearing a mask. It's loud because it's hollow. And when you stay calm, you force them to face the emptiness of their argument. It's like holding up a mirror. Your calmness shows them exactly what they lack: composure, confidence, clarity. And let's be honest, that unnerves people more than anything else. Have you ever noticed that the strongest leaders, the ones people actually respect, rarely need to shout? Think of a teacher you admired, a boss who inspired you, or even a parent who guided you. Chances are their authority wasn't built on volume. It was built on presence, on self-control, on words delivered calmly but firmly. I'll give you a real example. Years ago, I worked under a manager who believed every disagreement had to end in a shouting match. If you pushed back even a little, he'd raise his voice until the whole office could hear. At first, I fell into the trap. I argued back, raised my tone, tried to fight fire with fire. And every time, I left feeling drained, frustrated, and honestly, powerless. But one day, I decided to try something different. The next time he came at me, his voice rising, hands slamming the desk, I didn't budge. I stayed calm. I looked him straight in the eye, lowered my voice just slightly, and said, I don't need to raise my voice to be right. The silence that followed was almost shocking. He blinked, leaned back, and for the first time, he had no comeback. The rest of the team just stared, and I could feel the shift in the room. From that day forward, he never tried the same tactic with me again. That's the power of this phrase. It's not just words, it's a statement of identity. It tells the world, I don't fight with noise, I fight with reason. I don't compete for attention, I command it. I don't let you drag me into chaos. I anchor myself in clarity. As Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher, once said, he who cannot control his tongue will be a slave to his emotions. And that's exactly what's happening when you shout back. You're letting your emotions drive the car. But when you choose calmness, when you keep your voice steady, you prove that you are the one in control, not your anger, not their disrespect. Now, let me turn this back to you. Have you ever been in a situation where someone tried to dominate you with volume alone? Maybe a coworker, a partner, or even a stranger? How did you respond? Did you stay calm, or did you feel that pull to shout back? Drop your story in the comments. I'd love to hear how you handled it, because your experience might help someone else who's watching this right now. And if you're finding value so far, if this phrase is making you rethink the way you deal with conflict, then hit that like button. It really helps push this message out to more people who might need it. The truth is, people will always try to test your patience. Some will push your buttons just to see if they can control you. But the way you respond or refuse to respond determines who really holds the power. So next time someone gets louder, remember, the volume of their voice doesn't determine the strength of their point. And your calmness, that's your superpower. Because in the end, I don't need to raise my voice to be right isn't just a phrase. It's a philosophy. It's the quiet confidence that commands respect without demanding it. Response 2. The way you speak says more about you than it does about me. Let me paint you a picture. You're in the middle of a conversation, maybe with a colleague, a friend, or even a stranger online. At first, it's just words going back and forth. But suddenly the tone shifts. Sarcasm enters. Mockery, maybe even contempt. And you feel that sting, that sharp cut, as if their words were meant to bruise, not to communicate. Now, let me ask you something. What's your first instinct in a situation like that? Most people want to fire back, to cut deeper, to match sarcasm with sarcasm, to win. But here's the trap. The moment you play their game, you've already lost. You've stepped into their arena, where noise matters more than truth. Instead, imagine this. You don't get angry. You don't rush to defend yourself. You don't try to one-up their insult. Instead, you look at them calm, unshaken, like a mirror, and you simply say, the way you speak says more about you than it does about me. And suddenly, silence. Why? Because you didn't fight them. You didn't give them ammunition. You didn't even validate their attack. What you did was far more powerful. You held up a mirror, and in that mirror, they're forced to see themselves. Here's the beauty of this phrase. It doesn't accuse. It doesn't humiliate. It doesn't even defend. It just reflects. And when you reflect, the person attacking has no choice but to hear their own voice, their own tone, their own ugliness. It's like throwing their energy back at them, but without lifting a finger, without raising your voice, without saying a single harsh word. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." And that's exactly what this phrase embodies. You refuse to stoop down. You refuse to be dragged into the mud. You stand higher, calmer, clearer. Let me share a quick story. A friend of mine once had a boss who loved using sarcasm as a weapon. In meetings, he'd throw little jabs, subtle enough to pass as jokes, but sharp enough to make people feel small. Most employees laughed nervously or stayed quiet, but inside they hated it. One day, my friend decided to try something different. After yet another sarcastic jab, he looked at his boss, smiled politely, and said, "The way you speak says more about you than it does about me." The room froze. Nobody laughed. And for the first time, that boss didn't have a clever comeback. Why? Because sarcasm thrives on reaction. When you don't feed it, when you reflect it, it dies. And everyone watching saw exactly who lost control in that moment. Now, think about this in your own life. How many times have you walked away from a conversation, replaying it in your head? Wishing you'd had the perfect words to say, wishing you could have stood your ground without starting a war? This phrase gives you that power. It doesn't just silence mockery. It teaches people how to treat you. It sends a clear message. You can throw words at me, but you can't shake me. I see who you are, and I won't let your tone define me. And here's something important. The more you practice this, the more people around you begin to notice. They start to realize you're not easy to provoke. You don't get dragged into cheap arguments. You don't lower yourself just to win. And ironically, that's when you start winning the most. Because true respect isn't demanded through volume or insults. It's earned through self-control, through clarity, and through calm strength. Quick question for you, and I'd love for you to answer in the comments. Have you ever been in a situation where someone's words cut deep but you stayed calm? Or maybe a moment where you wish you had this exact phrase ready to use? Share it below, because your story could inspire someone else who's watching this right now. And if you're enjoying this so far, if this phrase feels like a tool you could actually use in your own life, hit that like button. It helps this message reach more people who need it. Remember this. Words are powerful, but tone is louder than volume. And when you remind someone that the way they speak says more about them than it does about you, you're not fighting back. You're standing taller. You're showing that respect is something you live by, whether they give it to you or not. And when you master that, you become unforgettable. Response 3, let's talk when we can do it respectfully. Think about this for a second. Have you ever been in a so-called conversation that didn't feel like a conversation at all? Where the other person isn't listening. They're just waiting for their turn to attack. They cut you off mid-sentence, raise their voice, and keep pushing until it feels less like dialogue and more like a battlefield. It's frustrating, isn't it? You're trying to make a point, but it's like trying to play chess with someone who keeps knocking the pieces off the board. No matter what you say, they're not hearing you. They just want to win. Now, here's where most people go wrong. The instinct is to fight fire with fire, to raise your own voice, to push back harder, to outshout them. But here's the truth. The moment you do that, you've already lost. You've stepped into their chaos. You've let their energy dictate your reaction. But what if, instead of matching their storm, you chose calm? What if you paused, breathed, and simply said, let's talk when we can do it respectfully? Do you see the difference? That's not retreat. That's not weakness. That's leadership. You're raising the standard. You're saying, if you want my attention, if you want my voice in this, it will only happen on the ground of respect. And let me ask you something right now. Would you actually have the courage to say that in the middle of a heated argument? Be honest. Drop your answer in the comments, because I promise your perspective could give someone else the courage they need the next time they face this exact situation. Let's go deeper. This phrase is powerful because it shifts the entire dynamic. Suddenly, it's not about the argument anymore. It's about the conditions under which the argument even exists. You're drawing a line in the sand. saying, "This is the level we're going to operate at. If you can't rise to it, then this conversation doesn't happen." Epictetus, one of the great Stoic philosophers, taught that while we cannot control other people, we can always control what we accept. That's exactly what this phrase demonstrates. You're showing that you don't accept chaos. You don't accept hostility. You don't accept being spoken to like you don't matter. And here's the magic. When you calmly say this, you take the oxygen out of the fire. You stop feeding their aggression. And most of the time, the other person realizes they only have two choices: adjust their tone or lose the privilege of continuing the conversation. Let me give you a real-life example. A woman I know used this phrase in her own marriage. Her husband had a habit of raising his voice whenever arguments heated up. For years, she tried yelling back, and every time, things spiraled out of control. Until one day, in the middle of another argument, she took a deep breath, looked him straight in the eye, and said, "Let's talk when we can do it respectfully." And then she stopped. She didn't storm off. She didn't slam doors. She just held her ground in calm silence. The effect? Immediate. Her husband froze because the rules had changed. She wasn't refusing the conversation. She was demanding it on higher terms. And from that day forward, the tone in their arguments began to shift. That's the quiet power of this phrase. It doesn't just protect your peace. It teaches people how to treat you. Now, imagine this happening in your own life. Picture being in the middle of a heated exchange at work, with a boss or a colleague trying to bulldoze you. Instead of arguing back, you calmly say, "Let's talk when we can do it respectfully." That one sentence sends a clear message. You value respect over chaos, peace over shouting, and dignity over domination. And let me pause here for a second. If you're finding value in this, if you can already think of a situation where this phrase could change the game for you, do me a favor. Hit that like button. It helps this message spread to more people who need it. And let's be honest, the world could use a little more respectful communication, right? The truth is this: conversations without respect are not conversations. They're noise. And every time you use this phrase, you remind the world and yourself that you won't waste your energy on noise. So, next time you feel yourself getting pulled into the chaos, remember, you don't need to shout. You don't need to win the last word. All you need to say is, "Let's talk when we can do it respectfully." And in that moment, you've already won. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever walked away from a conversation because it got too disrespectful? Or do you wish you'd had this phrase ready in a moment like that? Share your story in the comments. I read them all, and your experience might inspire someone else who's watching this right now. Response for, "I prefer not to continue this conversation." Let me start with a question. Have you ever found yourself stuck in a conversation that felt like quicksand? The more you spoke, the deeper you sank. No matter how carefully you explained, no matter how calmly you tried to reason, the other person just wasn't listening. They weren't looking for understanding. They were looking for victory. If you've ever been there, you know how exhausting it feels. Your heart rate goes up, your chest gets tight, and even after the conversation ends, you replay in your head over and over again, thinking of what you should have said. But here's a truth most of us learn too late. Not every conversation deserves to be finished. Some deserve to be ended. And sometimes the strongest move you can make isn't keep fighting, it's to stop. That's when you calmly say, "I prefer not to continue this conversation." Think about the power in that phrase. You're not asking for permission. You're not defending yourself. You're not begging them to change their tone. You're making a choice. You're drawing a boundary. You're shutting the door, not in anger, but in peace. And that moment, that act of walking away from a toxic back and forth, is one of the strongest demonstrations of self-respect you will ever show. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed." And that's exactly what this phrase does. It's not about controlling the other person. It's about protecting your peace, your energy, and your dignity. Let's bring this to life. Imagine you're at a family dinner. Someone decides to pick a fight over politics, religion, or lifestyle choices. You know where this is going. No matter what you say, they'll twist your words. You feel the tension rising. Normally, you get pulled into a trap, defending yourself for hours. But this time, you take a deep breath, look them in the eye, and say, "I prefer not to continue this conversation." And then you stop. You don't storm out. You don't add fuel to the fire. You simply place a period where they expected a paragraph. The silence speaks louder than any argument ever could. Now pause for a second. How many arguments in your life could have ended sooner? With less stress, less regret, and less wasted energy. If you had just used this one phrase. Seriously, think about it. And while you're at it, share your story in the comments, because I guarantee you're not the only one who's been dragged into conversations that never should have continued. Here's why this works so well. When you refuse to continue, you take back control. You show that your time, your peace, and your mental clarity are worth more than winning an endless debate. And that realization that you don't need the last word is freedom. Epictetus taught that freedom isn't about getting everything you want. It's about choosing what you allow into your life. By saying, "I prefer not to continue this conversation," you're showing exactly that your peace is priceless. And let's be real, people will notice. Even those watching from the sidelines will see who truly has the power. It's not the one shouting. It's not the one mocking. It's the one who chooses to step out of the fight with dignity intact. If this is resonating with you, if you're already thinking of situations where this phrase could save you stress, hit that like button right now. Not only does it tell me this message matters, but it also helps more people find it. People who might need this exact reminder today. The bottom line is this. Life is too short to waste on conversations that go nowhere. Some doors are better closed. And when you calmly say, "I prefer not to continue this conversation," you're not just ending an argument. You're protecting your energy, your peace, and your self-respect. And trust me, that's a victory worth more than any comeback line you could ever think of. Now, let me ask you, have you ever had the courage to walk away from a conversation like this? Or do you wish you had? Share below, because your experience might be the reminder someone else needs today. Response 5. That's your opinion, and I respect it, but I don't share it. Let me ask you something. How many times have you found yourself in a conversation with someone you actually care about? Maybe a close friend, a family member, or even a colleague, and suddenly it turns into a tug of war over opinions. You're sitting there, nodding, listening, but deep inside you know you don't agree. And yet, because you don't want conflict, you keep quiet. Or worse, you pretend to agree just to keep the peace. But later, you feel this heavy weight because you betrayed your own beliefs just to avoid an argument. Sound familiar? If it does, hit that like button right now. So I know I'm not the only one who's been there. Here's the truth most people forget. Not every disagreement has to become a battle. Not every difference in perspective needs to explode into drama. Sometimes the most powerful move is to calmly, respectfully, but firmly set the line. That's where this phrase comes in. That's your opinion, and I respect it, but I don't share it. Think about how elegant that sounds. You're not dismissing them. You're not mocking them. You're not trying to prove them wrong. Instead, you're saying, I hear you. I acknowledge your right to think that way. But I also reserve the right to think differently. This isn't just words. It's balance. It's diplomacy. It's self-respect without hostility. Let me give you an example. A friend once tried to convince me that the safe route in life was the only smart choice. The stable job, the predictable routine, no risks, no chasing crazy dreams. For years, I listened politely, but deep down, I knew that wasn't me. One day, after another long lecture, I finally said, "That's your opinion and I respect it, but I don't share it." And then I stopped talking. The silence that followed was powerful. There was nothing left for him to push against. No argument, no defense, just a clear boundary. And you know what? For the first time, he stopped trying to change my mind. Seneca once said, "To be a slave to the opinion of others is the worst of all prisons." And he was right. How many of us are walking around chained by what other people think we should do or who we should be? This phrase is like a key. It unlocks those chains and reminds you that you don't owe anyone your agreement. Here's what makes it so effective. It shows respect, so you don't escalate the tension. It marks your boundary, so you don't betray yourself. And it ends a tug of war, because you refuse to pick up the rope. Now, let me ask you this. Have you ever been in a situation where you agreed out loud but disagreed inside? Just to keep things smooth? Did it make you feel stronger or smaller? Drop your answer in the comments, because I think a lot of people will relate to your story. And remember this, true respect isn't about always agreeing. It's about listening, acknowledging, and still staying true to yourself. So the next time someone you care about keeps pressing you to see things their way, try it. Say calmly, "That's your opinion and I respect it, but I don't share it." It's polite, it's firm, and most importantly, it's free. If this message gave you value, don't forget to hit that like button. Subscribe for more Stoic wisdom, and share this with someone who struggles to set boundaries in conversations. Have you noticed something powerful about these 5 responses? They're not just clever phrases you throw out in the heat of the moment. They're tools, quiet but strong, that shift the balance of any interaction. They don't just silence disrespect. They elevate you above it. Because when you choose calm over chaos, clarity over conflict, and self-control over reaction, you're no longer playing someone else's game. You're leading. Let's go over them one last time, slowly, so they really stick with you. I don't need to raise my voice to be right. A reminder that volume is never a substitute for truth. The way you speak says more about you than it does about me. A mirror that forces people to face their own words. Let's talk when we can do it respectfully. A standard that makes respect the price of your attention. I prefer not to continue this conversation. A boundary that closes the door on toxicity. That's your opinion, and I respect it, but I don't share it. A gentle yet firm declaration of independence. Now here's the real challenge. Don't just listen to these phrases. Practice them. Write them down. Repeat them until they come naturally. Because once you master them, you'll notice something shift. People start treating you differently. They sense that you're not easy to provoke anymore. You carry yourself with presence, with quiet authority, with a respect that begins within and extends outward. And let me pause right here. If this video has been valuable to you, do me a quick favor. Hit that like button. It takes 1 second, but it helps this message reach so many more people who need it. And if you want more lessons on Stoicism, resilience, and building inner strength, make sure you're subscribed to Stoicism Empire. Also, Think about someone in your life who struggles with handling disrespect. Maybe it's a friend, maybe it's a coworker, maybe it's even a family member. Share this video with them. Because sometimes the right words at the right time can completely change how someone carries themselves. Now, I want to hear from you. Out of these 5 responses, which one spoke to you the most? Which one do you feel ready to use the next time you face disrespect? Drop your answer in the comments, because your story might be the exact spark someone else needs. And before you go, let me give you a quick preview of what's coming next. If you thought today's topic was eye-opening, wait until you see what's next. 7 hidden reasons why you look younger than your age. Some of these reasons come straight from timeless Stoic wisdom, others from modern psychology, and a few will completely surprise you. You'll understand not just how to look younger, but how to feel younger, and why people with true inner strength often carry an ageless presence. Don't miss it. Click on the next video right now, and I'll see you there.